Yeah, we've got to talk about this emotional roller coaster of a story around Christopher Dunn. And while it's in the news today, to fully understand this, we got to go back to a spring night in 1990. Because that is when you had this group of teenage boys hanging out in front of one of their homes in Missouri when a gunman suddenly opened fire on them. And this shooting killing 15-year-old Rico Rogers. And then, as the search for the shooter unfolded, you had two witnesses, aged 12 and 14, identifying Christopher Dunn, then 18 years old, as the shooter. Now, in his defense, Dunn's childhood friend testified that she was on the phone with him that night, a phone which was at his family's house. His mom also backed that up, confirming that he was at home watching TV with the family when the shooting happened.
I know he wasn't because we all was at the house. Yeah. And I told the police that. And he said, well, family people lie for family people.
But despite that, one, Dunn was tried for murder, and two, the prosecution presented no motive, no weapon, not even any physical evidence. Just the testimony of those two boys, which formed the backbone of the case against him. And this entire trial, it was over in a single afternoon, with the jury deliberating for just 45 minutes. But instead of giving Dunn the slam dunk acquittal that he expected, they found him guilty of first-degree murder, for which he was sentenced to life without parole, and he recalled this to CBS.
It was like my world just fell in front of me. I didn't see anything else but darkness.
And throughout all of this, Dunn maintained his innocence, which also led 8 years later to the story catching the eye of writer and editor Kira Kaywood.
Their testimonies didn't match, but by the time they got to court, everything matched. And so it was clear to me reading it that these young men seemed to have been coached.
And so with the help of a private investigator, she tracked down the two witnesses and both recanted their testimonies. With the first admitting that he lied because the prosecution offered him leniency on charges he was facing himself. And the second admitting that he lied because he thought Dunn was affiliated with a rival gang.
Did we see Dunn do it? No.
Okay.
No, nobody seen Dunn do it.
Kira, she wasn't just convinced of Dunn's innocence, she also became convinced that she loved him.
We got married right here in this visiting room.
So her name is no longer Kira Kaywood, but Kira Dunn, wife of the man that she's fighting to set free. Which then brings us to 2018, when Dunn's legal team filed to vacate his conviction. And given the bombshell evidence that they now have, Dunn's family told ABC they assumed that this case would just be open and shut.
One of the guys came out and he told Mom that he believed Chris was innocent.
He said, Mrs. Dunn, on behalf of the state of Missouri, I am so sorry for what's happened to your son. I had his clothes and we had the car and we were just ready to go have something to eat afterwards.
But after 2 long years of deliberation, the judge shocked everybody by ruling that Chris Dunn had to stay in prison. Write it. This court does not believe that any jury would now convict Christopher Dunn under these facts. But then adding that even despite that, a quirk of Missouri law prohibits his release because only death row inmates can make innocence claims. And of course, Dunn, he was only given a life sentence, so this was an absolutely devastating gut punch for all, but especially his mom.
It's just so hard. I'm tired.
Then even with that, Dunn still had one last hope, St. Louis Circuit Attorney Gabriel Gore. Because thanks to a 2021 state law, prosecutors can actually request a hearing if they have evidence that someone was wrongfully convicted. And so Gore filed a motion to vacate the conviction in February of this year, presenting his case to a judge in May, and he just got the decision this week, with the judge stating in no uncertain terms, the state of Missouri shall immediately discharge Christopher Dunn from its custody. Meaning that at the age of 52, having spent 33 years of his life in prison, suffered 3 heart attacks after being stabbed by another inmate, Chris Dunn can finally walk free. With Kira telling the news.
I'm still processing this. I'm so thankful, though. I can tell you that I'm so thankful that we're all still.
Except, it turns out his freedom may not be so easy. And that's because Republican Attorney General Andrew Bailey, who has maintained that Dunn is in fact guilty since the beginning, appealed the judge's ruling. And this, even though the district attorney says that under Missouri law, the AG has no right to appeal. But despite that, the Missouri Department of Corrections is refusing to let Dunn go, citing the pending appeal. As for why Bailey's doing this, I honestly cannot find an answer right now other than maybe he has a kink for keeping innocent people locked up. Or he has stubbornly opposed other high-profile innocence claims in Missouri recently, like with Lamar Johnson, for example, who spent 27 years in prison before being freed, and Marcellus Williams, who's set to be executed later this year. Now, there was also Sandra Hemme, who spent 43 years in prison before a judge vacated her conviction last month. In that case, Bailey's appeals kept her from being released, and even called the prison warden to urge him not to let her go. Though there, after the judge threatened Bailey with contempt of court, she was finally set free on Friday. And so now you have Dunn's family just hoping to God that he gets the same outcome.
We are overjoyed, and at the same time, we're also afraid to really exhale until Chris actually takes his first free steps and feels the free ground against his feet. When that happens, I think all these feelings we've been holding on to for so long will finally erupt.